Hey there, Star Wars fans. Welcome back to the Hyperspace Database. I'm Jonesy the Mandalorian here with another great, interesting piece of Star Wars lore. Have you ever had one of those times where you've said to yourself, man, I was today years old when I found out this or that or whatever? Well, hold on to your socks, because this might completely blow your mind. We have all seen the epic space battle in A New Hope that pits the outnumbered Rebel Alliance against the mighty Galactic Empire and the fearsome Death Star, right? The iconic trench run where Luke Skywalker shoots the proton torpedoes and blows up the station right before it destroys the Rebel base on Yavin 4? Yes, so epic. But what if I was to tell you that this scene actually doesn't take place where we thought that it did? For numerous years, it was the general assumption that this ring around the center of the Death Star was the main trench that Luke and the Rebels fly down. However, this is not actually the case. If you were like, "What?" Don't worry, you're not alone. According to a blog post by ILM visual effects artist Todd Vaziri, many employees at ILM and countless fans were also convinced that the middle trench was where the final trench run took place. This space is called the Equatorial Trench, where there are numerous docking bays for incoming ships and for the Empire's many squadrons of TIE fighters and other craft. You might not know, but we actually see the Millennium Falcon enter one of these docking bays right after Alderaan is destroyed, and you can see that this trench is way bigger than the trench that the Rebels fly down at the end of the film, and houses several docking bays that are stacked vertically over each other. Here's some pictures from the Star Wars Cross Sections book, which also show that the Equatorial Trench was where the Empire stored many of their starfighters, which would make sense why in Return of the Jedi, the ceremonial parade of starfighters to welcome the Emperor orbited the Equatorial Trench. So, we've established where the trench is not, but the question then is, where is it really? Todd Vaziri recalls a moment during the development of Rogue One where computer graphics supervisor Vic Schutz and visual effects supervisor John Knoll were chatting about the real location of the trench run in A New Hope, and how many people often get it confused. The actual trench to reach the thermal exhaust port, drumroll please, actually runs in a north-south direction, not east to west. Okay, so it's a sphere in space. There's not really any north, south, east to west directions, but you know what I mean here. The actual trench in A New Hope runs along a longitudinal axis, or a north-south line towards the top of the station, where the main exhaust port is located, and this trench is called the Meridian Trench, or sometimes the Polar Trench. Take a look at this photo, which shows an interior look at the Death Star. The main exhaust port is at the very topmost crown of the station, with the thermal exhaust port being next to it, not very far off. This makes sense when you think about the briefing on Yavin 4 just before the run on the Death Star. General Jan Dodonna tells the assembled pilots that the thermal exhaust port is right below the main port. In the same meeting, if you pay really close attention, you can see that the blueprints of the station show that the trench is actually above the super laser, running both north and south. This model can be a bit misleading though, because it has the super laser intersecting the Equatorial Trench, but that was because Larry Cuba, the computer graphic artist who made the model, was given this concept art matte painting to go off of, which has the super laser in the center, and he was not notified of the change in design to update his graphics until after this scene had been shot, so it was left as is. So now that we've established where the trench is, we have to ask ourselves the question, how in the world did we miss that? Turns out that it was easier than one might imagine, as Todd Vaziri outlines some of the likely causes for this confusion. Since we have seen the main trench on the Death Star before the Rebels approach it to make the attack run, our brains could easily make that associative jump to think, oh yeah, this is a trench. We've seen a big, obvious trench that runs along the ring of the station before. So subconsciously, it would be pretty easy to make that leap without really even thinking about it. The second reason we might have missed it is that there was some tricky shot positioning during the moments that lead up to the actual trench run itself. There are two framed shots in particular that make it seem like the trench runs in a latitudinal direction. The first is when several X-Wings approach the station and seem to dive into the area of the horizontal trench. However, they don't actually go into it until much later. And this is a perspective shot in space, so up and down is kind of muddled, despite the way it's presented. The second shot is when fighters actually go into the trench, where it is again presented like the trench runs horizontally. Was this just an oversight by the developers at Lucasfilm and ILM? Was it actually supposed to be along the Equatorial Trench and something got changed in development? We may never find out, but don't feel too bad if you didn't know. Even Legoland in California got it wrong on their giant Death Star build, and there was at least one board game that depicted the Death Star trench run as running along the equator of the battle station, so it was kind of misleading from the beginning. The trench run has been portrayed in several different fashions in Star Wars video games, from the Rogue Squadron series depicting it with some twists and turns, as well as more obstacles than the movies, to the newer Battlefront games, where you actually dive deeper into the station to take out the thermal exhaust port. Was this news a surprise to you? Did you know all along? Let me know in the comments and tell me which version of the trench run is your favorite. I played quite a bit of the Rogue Squadron series on the Nintendo 64 and the GameCube myself, so I'm kinda partial to those. If you want to know more about Star Wars topics just like this one, be sure to stick around to the end for some secret trivia, hit those like and subscribe buttons, and you can check out my other videos for more great Star Wars content. Super special shout out to my Gold Captain level Patreon supporters Miss 2003, Nick Sutphin, and Matthew Scott. Your support is super helpful in keeping the show going, and I just really appreciate your support. Thank you. Thank you very, very much for watching this episode. Be sure to chat with me in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. May the Force be with you.